In early 1796, Napoleon Bonaparte received the command that would ignite his rise from a promising young general to a figure of continental significance: leadership of the French Army of Italy. The appointment came at a moment when France desperately needed a decisive military success. Years of revolutionary turmoil had drained resources, emboldened foreign enemies, and placed enormous pressure on military commanders to secure victories that could stabilize the fragile republic. The Army of Italy, however, was anything but prepared for greatness. The troops were starving, poorly equipped, and deeply demoralized. Their uniforms were worn, their boots falling apart, and their pay several months in arrears. They had endured harsh conditions in the Alpine frontier, with little to show for it. Many officers believed the Italian theater was a dead end, a place where careers stalled rather than advanced. Napoleon saw something different. He viewed Italy not as a burden, but as an opportunity, an arena where bold maneuvering and strategic innovation could compensate for the army's weaknesses. When he arrived in Nice to take command, he addressed his troops with a speech that reflected both his ambition and his understanding of their desperation. He promised them victories, supplies, honor, and the wealth that could be taken from their enemies. His words resonated deeply. For soldiers who had grown accustomed to hardship, the presence of a commander who exuded confidence and direction was transformative. From the outset, Napoleon adopted a strategy built on speed, deception, and concentrated force. The Austrian and Piedmontese armies, superior in number, expected a cautious French advance through familiar passes. Instead, Napoleon delivered a series of rapid and unexpected strikes, splitting the Allied forces and defeating them separately before they could unite. The campaign began with the battles of Montenotte and Millesimo. Napoleon seized the high ground, exploited the terrain, and forced the Piedmontese forces into retreat. His movements were coordinated with mathematical precision. He controlled tempo, choosing when to attack and when to feint, and he continually forced the enemy into reactive positions. The speed of his operations astonished experienced Austrian commanders who struggled to understand how a young general could move an army so quickly through such complex terrain. At the Battle of Mondovì, Napoleon's forces broke Piedmontese resistance entirely. The Kingdom of Sardinia, recognizing the futility of continued fighting, sued for peace. This was a critical moment. By removing Piedmont from the coalition, Napoleon secured his army's flank, gained much-needed supplies, and established the French Republic's influence in northern Italy. With Piedmont neutralized, Napoleon turned his full attention to Austria. The main Austrian army, commanded by General Beaulieu and later by General Wurmser, attempted repeatedly to push the French out of Lombardy. Each time, Napoleon countered with bold and unexpected maneuvers. The Battle of Lodi became one of the defining events of the campaign and of Napoleon's early legend. At Lodi, the Austrian rearguard defended a bridge spanning the Adda River, supported by strong artillery positions. Rather than withdraw or seek an alternate route, Napoleon launched a frontal assault. French grenadiers advanced under heavy fire, storming the bridge in a display of courage and determination. The fighting was brutal, yet despite the odds, the French crossed and forced the Austrians to retreat. Later in life, Napoleon would say that it was at Lodi he first felt the possibility of greatness settle upon him. The victory carried immense symbolic power. It demonstrated not only his tactical daring, but the willingness of his soldiers to follow him into extreme danger. The campaign continued with the capture of Milan, where Napoleon entered the city not as a conqueror, but as a figure promising liberation. He reorganized local governments, collected taxes, secured supplies, and used political diplomacy to reinforce French influence. His approach extended beyond a battlefield. Napoleon understood that military victories needed to be accompanied by administrative stability and political persuasion. As the Austrians mounted fresh offensives, Napoleon responded with a series of defensive and offensive operations that showcased his growing mastery. The battles of Castiglione, Bassano, Arcole, and finally Rivoli revealed his ability to adapt quickly to changing conditions. At Rivoli, one of his most brilliant victories, the Austrians attempted a multi-pronged attack through mountainous terrain. Napoleon recognized their fragmented formation and struck decisively at the center, breaking their lines and forcing a chaotic retreat. The collapse of Austrian resistance led to the French advance toward the very heart of the Habsburg Empire. By the spring of 1797, Napoleon's forces approached Vienna, compelling Austria to negotiate the Treaty of Campo Formio. The treaty granted France vast territories, transformed the political landscape of Italy, and confirmed Napoleon as one of Europe's most formidable military leaders. The Italian campaign did more than elevate Napoleon's military reputation. It demonstrated a new way of waging war. He emphasized rapid movement, flexible strategy, and the concentration of force at decisive points. He used reconnaissance and intelligence with exceptional clarity, anticipating enemy maneuvers before they materialized. He understood the morale of his troops and used speeches, symbolic gestures, and personal presence to inspire loyalty. 18th century warfare had been dominated by slow marches, rigid formations, and cautious engagements. Napoleon shattered that paradigm. His approach was dynamic, unpredictable, and relentlessly aggressive. The Austrian generals found themselves unable to match his energy or his innovation. The campaign also solidified Napoleon's political influence. His reports to the Directory, widely circulated in France, portrayed him not only as a victorious general, but as a visionary leader. Newspapers praised him, public opinion embraced him, and soldiers idolized him. For many, he had become the embodiment of revolutionary success. Yet beneath the triumph lay deeper ambitions. Napoleon was no longer content to serve merely as a military commander. Italy had shown him the power of personal leadership and the weakness of the government in Paris. He had tasted independence and authority. He had negotiated treaties, reorganized governments, and ruled conquered regions with minimal oversight. He had become, in effect, a political figure with an army, and a man increasingly aware that the future of France might one day pass through his hands. The Italian campaign was not merely his first major victory. It was the moment Napoleon stepped fully onto the stage of European history. A commander whose brilliance, energy, and ambition signaled the arrival of an entirely new force in world affairs.